You may not know his name, but Myon Burrell's 17-year-old case has become a national storyline in the presidential election. It is now under scrutiny after Senator Amy Klobuchar initially took credit for making sure the killer of 11-year-old Tyesha Edwards was put behind bars. After a year-long investigation, the Associated Press says the case was flawed. Myon, just 16 years old at the time, has maintained his innocence. And so we went to the Minnesota Correctional Facility Stillwater in Minneapolis to hear from Myon firsthand.
So who told you that I was up in the car? A lot of people. How could a lot of people tell you something that is not true? So that's a false accusation.
New explosive excerpts from interrogation video in the controversial case of Myon Burrell.
That's your job, to make sure that justice is served. You know what I'm saying? So make sure that justice is served. I know for a fact that I didn't do anything, so I'm not really worried about anything.
His arrest and conviction is one Senator Amy Klobuchar has brought back into the public consciousness, initially wearing it as a badge of honor as it relates to her tough-on-crime reputation and her efforts to bring justice for shooting victims in the African-American community.
My job is to hold people accountable when they break the law.
But here in her state of Minnesota, an ugly scar, exposed and time-tested, lingering like an open wound, a constant reminder of the gaping hole a stray bullet left in this community back in November of 2002 after it penetrated this home across the street. Inside, an 11-year-old little girl named Tyesha Edwards doing her homework at the dining room table.
And I ran in, tried to call 911. I didn't know if I should do CPR or not. I just knew she was laying on the floor. And then when they brought her out, she was passed away.
Outrage erupted in the black community with mounting pressure on the police department to find her killer.
It was an 11-year-old girl that was hit with a stray bullet, right? And so there was a lot of concern in the community that justice was served.
The killing was so senseless. So I think it had reached a point at that time where there just needed to be justice, and there needed to be fast justice. 4
days after Tyesha's death, police said they'd tracked down her killer.
16-year-old gang member Myon Burrell fired a gunshot into their home. A bullet hit Tyesha in the chest.
That was 17 years ago.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Myon. Lindsay Davis. Very nice to meet you. To this day, Myon Burrell, now almost 34 years old, says he didn't do it. Myon, a lot of people say that they're innocent. Why should people believe you?
I've always let people know that I was innocent. It's just now that I have a voice. But it's not about what I tell people to make them believe, but what people can see for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, go and look into it, and then you tell me if you believe that I'm innocent.
That's exactly what Robin McDowell, a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, did as part of an Associated Press year-long investigation. Why do you believe Myon?
Well, I didn't go into the investigation thinking he was innocent for sure. I did believe that when a lot of inmates, friends and rivals, were saying that they believed he was innocent, that he was worth looking into.
Just last month, the AP released an article concluding the case was flawed, citing inconsistencies in the police investigation that led to Myon being jailed for life.
I started getting the police reports, getting the court transcripts from the first and second trial, and just went through and looked for inconsistencies and started kind of just hitting the pavement and talking to, everyone I could talk to.
Among those she talked to, Ike Tyson, who said for years that he was the killer, not Myon.
It's a whole nother burden to carry after what I already had done. I already shot an innocent girl, now an innocent guy, and at the time he was a kid, is locked up for something he didn't do. So it's like I'm carrying two burdens.
Without a gun, fingerprints, or DNA, the case against Myon largely relied on testimony from a teen rival who changed his story several times about who he said he saw at the crime scene. He has since died. The investigation questioned police tactics caught on camera.
If I knew anything, I'd say,
yeah.
No.
All right. I just need some names of who was across that street. I just signed out $1,000 about 2 hours ago, and I can keep signing until I get that names, and I'll take it from there. And no one will ever see or know where it came from.
where an investigator offers $500 for names of potential suspects, even for hearsay from someone who said he knew nothing about the crime.
But to say the thing is, I'm not exactly sure everything is.
I know it's iffy and hearsay, but hearsay is still worth something to me. You don't have to sign a word. You don't have to sign anything that you got money from me. Nothing. I don't know. I'm talking a few $100. Yeah, maybe $300-400. Huh? Is it better than that? See, I don't know what you know. If it's better than that, I can give, $500 a name.
$500 a name.
If it's real. Yep.
And while this video has only recently surfaced, Myon believes surveillance video may have existed that could have exonerated him, but police never pursued it. The surveillance video from this convenience store, Cup Foods, where Myon says he was at the time of the shooting.
I'm going to get a videotape from Cup Foods. I swear, I was up in Cup Foods. I didn't even know what happened.
That's his alibi. Wouldn't it have been just as simple as finding the surveillance video at Cup convenience store?
It should have been, especially when he said during his interrogation, go get the tapes. Like, there is no excuse, in my mind, at that point, to not go pick up the surveillance tapes or to go talk to the alibi. He specifically gives the name of a girl, says I was with her, go talk to her. Yet, nobody never goes talk to her. So those are two really kind of clear, open and shut things to me. If you're looking to, at both sides of the investigation, not just to find who's guilty, but to see if someone's innocent, you're going to investigate both sides.
And you went to find that tape, and what were you told?
I was told they didn't remember, but they definitely had surveillance cameras up at that time, many of them.
Maybe like a month into me being housed or being incarcerated, being locked up, you know, my mom, she ended up passing away. She ended up dying in a car accident from visiting me. And as a 16-year-old child, it was so devastating. And I was in a place where it was nobody but me. So that kind of took over my state of mind. I really stopped asking questions to my attorney at that point, and all the way until I went to trial, I believed that they had those tapes. And so then when I went to trial and he never presented them, or they never, it was just like, you know, I didn't really know how to take it.
In May of 2003, a jury convicted Myon of first-degree murder. For more than half of his life now, this has been home for Myon. You could have taken a plea deal. If you had, you'd be out already.
Yeah.
Why haven't you?
Well, I mean, so it hurts to know that you. It hurts to know that you could be out right now. That I could put in an appeal and say, hey, listen, give me less time and let me out right now. But then I would be taking responsibility for a crime that I didn't commit. And I could never do that.
In 2005, 2 years after he was found guilty, the Minnesota Supreme Court overturned Myon's conviction.
That was a Miranda rights violations. When Myon was being interrogated, he was asking for his mother, and he asked to talk to his mother, asked if he could see his mother 13 times, and that was denied again and again. After the third time of asking, he was read his Miranda.
He was only 16 at the time, but was charged as an adult. The court ruled the denial of his mother, along with about a half dozen other errors during trial, warranted the overturn. But the head prosecutor at that time, Hennepin County Attorney Amy Klobuchar, immediately vowed to retry Myon, and in 2006 offered this justification for why Myon wasn't allowed to see his mother.
The police didn't want him to be able to compare notes, to be able to fabricate an alibi.
Burrell was tried again and found guilty by a judge in 2008, a conviction that has been upheld on appeal. By the time of his trial, Klobuchar had left the prosecutor's office for the U.S. Senate.
Amy Klobuchar, the same district attorney, charged me not only once, but even after my conviction was overturned, she recharged me. She recharged me with first-degree murder. Never looked into the facts of the case, never even addressed the misconduct that had taken place, and still put the same detective, these same police on my case to go and get more bogus evidence.
So do you hold Amy Klobuchar responsible?
Yes. Personally, I feel like she is the source of everything that happened, with her charging me You never took the time to look into this case. You never took the time to go and actually see, is this true or is this false? And when she did that, I believe that she gave the police free rein and said, just bring me back a conviction, secure me a conviction. And that's what they did, by any means necessary.
But her response has been, look, he's been tried twice, he's been convicted twice. The second time, I didn't have anything to do with that.
She charged me both times. She didn't try me. She didn't even try me the first time. She just played a big part in securing a conviction by getting on TV. Every time I went to court or any time something took place, she went on TV or she went in the newspaper and said, this is what she's going to do to me.
The case of Tyesha Edwards is one Klobuchar has touted as a success again and again. In her book, The Senator Next Door, and in 2006 during her campaign for the U.S. Senate, showing how she got justice for African-American victims of violence.
When our little girl, Tyesha, was murdered, Amy saw to it that those gang members were put away.
Minnesota's police have also endorsed Amy Klobuchar. Trust their word.
She even brought it up just this past September on the debate stage as a candidate for President of the United States. The ACLU's legal director in Minnesota has said that you showed no interest in racial justice. Do you wish now that you had done more?
That's not my record. The cases that came to us, the African-American community that came to us, they said there was no justice for their little kids. There was a kid named Byron Phillips that was shot on his front porch. No one had bothered to figure out who did it. When I came into that office, we worked with the community groups, we put up billboards, we found the shooter, and we put him in jail. We did the same for the killer of a little girl named Tyesha Edwards, who was doing her homework at her kitchen table and was shot through the window.
I think that's the main point about Myon in particular, right? Like, if you are going to hold this up as an example and something to be proud of, then this is a really bad example. And this is a nightmare of an example. Of all the cases I've looked at and have been interested, Myon is the one that, to me, is the most clear-cut. But there are others, and I may have focused on someone else if she hadn't been waving that flag.
Amy Klobuchar, as the Hennepin County Attorney, should have protected the rights of this juvenile and treated him with dignity and respect rather than acting as if he was disposable.
As a result of the AP investigation, just last month, a group of civil rights advocates, including members of Black Lives Matter Twin Cities, called for the senator to suspend her campaign for president.
You have wrongs that need to be right.
The head of the Minneapolis NAACP says justice was not served.
17 years of a lifetime sentence in prison for a crime that he did not commit.
How are you so convinced?
I'm so convinced because there was no evidence to convict him in the first place. There was no gun, there was no DNA. He has a solid alibi of being at Cubs food. The alibis have come forward. It was really based off of a rival gang member who basically said that he was the one who did it. And even if there's doubt and there's not certainty, I think that it's enough that we at least go back and review it.
Amy Klobuchar, you have questions that need to be answered.
How culpable do you think Amy Klobuchar is when it comes to Myon Burrell?
I think that she was the lead prosecutor at the time. I believe that she utilized this case to advance her political career, both as a senator and now doing her presidential campaign. And I think that she owes it. Every day that's going by is a life loss, is potential loss, is Myon's life going down the drain, his time that he could be spending with his family, his time he could be spending in life. And so Amy Klobuchar has a great debt to pay.
In recent weeks, Senator Klobuchar has faced tough questions.
I didn't know about this new evidence.
How do you defend something like that to someone like me who's the mother of a black boy, a black teenager? This case would be my worst nightmare.
All of the evidence needs to be immediately reviewed in that case. Well, I wasn't aware of that information, the new information.
The senator grilled again at last week's debate.
Why should Black and Latino voters trust your judgment now if it appears you may have gotten it wrong then?
First, I'll start with that case. It is very clear that any evidence, if there is new evidence, even old evidence, it should be reviewed by that office and by the county attorney. That must happen. I have called for that review. This was a case involving an 11-year-old African-American girl named Tyesha Edwards who was shot doing her homework at her kitchen table. 3 people were convicted. One of the cases is the one that is being investigated was investigated by a journalist, and I think it's very important that that evidence come forward.
In fairness, Amy Klobuchar has called for any new evidence in this case to be examined. Is that not enough?
It's not enough. Amy Klobuchar, again, I will reiterate, is a very powerful woman in the state of Minnesota as a senator through all her relationships, through previously being in that role. And if she wanted it to be open, I believe it would.
But in a statement to ABC News, current Hennepin County Attorney Michael Freeman strongly disputes Burrell's claims of innocence, saying he's been convicted twice for the murder. And they say the case is being unfairly politicized because of Klobuchar's prior involvement, and they point out that she was no longer working in their county office during the second trial. The prosecutor's office claims Burrell's alibi has changed 3 times during and since his trials. He confessed his involvement to a cousin and a jail informant. It was common practice for police to offer cash rewards in unsolved cases, and that it's not unusual to not find a weapon or DNA evidence. The office also provided a video statement.
We focus on facts. Mr. Burrell is represented by an attorney, and we have been working with that attorney for a year. If his legal team presents us with new evidence, we will review it. So far, that has not happened, and the only facts are from Mr. Burrell's trial a dozen years ago.
For Myon, a review can't come soon enough.
I lost my childhood in this place. I've been in here since I was a teen, all of my 20s, my 30s. I'll be 34 years old in next month. You know what I mean? So it's like I'll never be able to get that back. But if it was a real mistake, you speak out against the mistake that you made. You try to correct it. So I don't think that it was really like anything personal against me. I think that it was more so for them to put out that they're doing their job, or that they secured a conviction.
So you think you were just as much of an unintended target as Tyesha?
Well, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. So to me, it's an injustice all the way around the board. For one, they didn't actually give Tyesha or her family justice by pursuing the truth.
What would be the incentive for police to knowingly put the wrong guy behind bars?
Personally, I don't believe that it was a plot to as like a vendetta or something against me personally. I believe that they just wanted to put out to the public that they have found somebody that committed this crime.
But Myon says the renewed attention on his case gives him hope.
You know, when that AP piece came out, and I was able to see it, I cried. Because all of these years I've been in here and I've been screaming and I've been telling people that I'm innocent, I'm not supposed to be here. But my voice was never heard. And they gave me a voice, and not just from what I was telling them, but from what they found themselves. And so if you wanna know the truth, then go and find it yourself, like it's right there.
In his mind, Myon has already been vindicated, but the rest of him remains very much incarcerated.
You know, you try to make the best out of what you have, but it's far from home.
17 years later, evidence of the gunfire that once consumed this community and is now ricocheted around the country still remains. And it doesn't appear to be going away anytime soon. We requested an interview with Senator Klobuchar to discuss the case and provided a list of questions. In response, the Klobuchar campaign provided the following statement saying, quote, "As I've said before, this case should be reviewed immediately. This was about an 11-year-old girl, Tyesha Edwards, who was killed while she was sitting at her kitchen table doing her homework. And as a prosecutor, our job is to convict the guilty and protect the innocent. So if any evidence was not put forward or was not appropriately investigated, or if new evidence has emerged that should have been discovered at the time, it must be reviewed. When I was county attorney, I worked with the Innocence Project to advocate for better eyewitness identification procedures and for the widespread use of videotaped interrogations with the goals of reducing wrongful convictions and increasing accountability. In the county attorney's office, we worked to go back and review all the major cases that involve DNA evidence and to reform the procedures for eyewitness identification. I have been and always will be on the side of justice." And Myon's defense team tells us that they have gathered new evidence and hope to sit down and discuss the case with the Hennepin County Attorney's Office soon. And just a final note on this. Of course, it is not lost on us that an 11-year-old little girl is no longer with us, Tyesha Edwards, who her family says had hoped to be an attorney. Our thoughts are with her family.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.